Hi, I'm Judith Leblein. Welcome to Conversations. Perhaps over the years you've toyed with the idea of starting a business from your home. And maybe as you sit at your desk, you dream about, oh, wouldn't it be just terrific to work from my home? In the past, it was seen as a hobby, but now there are millions of Americans working from their home with very viable small businesses. So if that's been a dream of yours, you're going to want to stay tuned. You're going to want to meet Karyn Greenstreet. She's with Passion for Business. And Karyn, you've coached people in this whole idea of the home-based business.
People have dreamed of owning their own business from home for years, and I'm finding with people that they don't really know how to get started, but once they get started, it becomes a passion for them. It's something they really love, and I love helping them, so it's a perfect combination.
You know, there are so many intriguing concepts with working at home, and I've often wondered, in your opinion, do people that work at home, do they do as much work as the people that go to that cube from 9 to 5, or do you think they do more work?
Well, it's interesting because, as you know, in sort of corporate America right now, people are working longer and longer hours, and so they have this fantasy that if they work from home, they'll be able to sort of shuffle into their home office in their bunny slippers, and they'll work, you know, 4 or 5 hours a day. And the fact is you can do that, but it's also very possible and really, really easy to sort of say, well, I'll just check my email at midnight, you know, before I go to bed. So it really comes down to setting really good boundaries, because it's very easy to work a lot more hours than you ever did in corporate America. The plus side, of course, is that you're kind of loving those hours and it doesn't feel like work.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the sociology of this thing called the home-based business, because at one time, if someone had a small home-based business, maybe if they were female, and I'm going back sort of to the 1950s model, maybe you were selling Avon or Tupperware, or perhaps if a man had a small based business at home, it was maybe he was into woodworking or cabinetry. It was hobbies that were slowly turning into business. But that's all changed now.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, with the advent of the internet and high-speed internet access, people like web designers are working from home. Psychologists might have a home office. I know a dentist that has a home office. He built a house specifically to have this extra office. Consultants have home offices. Salespeople, gift basket makers. You can really do so many different things from home.
So what do you think, besides the internet, has impacted this concept of home-based business? Certainly the internet is a driving force.
Sure.
But do you think many people entered this sort of work-at-home environment because of the cost of child care, or because their companies perhaps downsized? Are those also things?
Lots and lots of people, when they are laid off, unfortunately, do go ahead and think about, well, do I want to start my own business? And what ends up happening is the first place they think is, well, I could just do it out of my home, which is less expensive. And that is true. It is less expensive because you're not, of course, renting office space. However, people are also considering the idea that they want to have more family time. People are getting very tired of working so much and coming home and being so exhausted, and having a home-based business allows them to do that.
And I'm sure with a lot of your female clients, you've probably heard, hey, I'm tired of, you know, bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan. I mean, you know, we had to do everything, and I think a lot of women are seeing this as a way to sort of have it all, perhaps in a more, let me say, controllable environment, because there's a lot of workaholics in home offices too.
Yes, I am one. But yes, it's absolutely true. What I sometimes talk with my clients about, I had this one client who just found that she was working way too much and not spending enough time with her children, and so we set it up that she would have very strict sort of 9 to 5 hours, and she would close her office door, her home office door, and she'd have all this extra time for her children, plus on days that they may be sick or there was a snow day, she could be home for them and still work.
So that's a nice benefit of a home-based business. All right, so let's first talk about sort of a profile of the kind of personality that you need to be able to work in a home-based business, because I'm sure people reach out to you at Passion for Business and they say, all right, I have this idea, I already have tested it, I know that I have a product to offer, but is it right for me? How do you help somebody identify if it's right for them?
Right. Well, first of all, just talking about personality. Part of it is you need to, of course, be organized, because you have to do everything. When you run your own business, and whether that business is at home or whether you have an office, when you have your own business, you really need to wear all the hats. And so you've got to be able to juggle all those hats at the same time. some people are really good at multitasking like that and others aren't, but being organized helps them to figure out what is the right thing to do at the right time. It helps to have a really good plan, to really have thought through it. Too many people jump in and just do it without really doing any planning, so it helps that you are a planning kind of person. You have to be a risk taker, because you've got to be willing to start your own business. It's a slightly less risk because you're at home, but the fact is you're starting a business which may be your primary source of income, so you've got to be willing to say, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go for it. And I think the other thing is that you've got to be able to set good boundaries because of the family, the difference between work and home and trying to keep a separateness.
Yeah, and I think there must be some questions that you have to ask someone. Is perhaps they've always worked around hundreds of people. Suddenly, they're isolated.
It can be very lonely.
There is no coffee pot to stand and gossip on Monday morning. There is no water cooler to tell the jokes.
Exactly.
There's not the support when you're stuck in a computer program. You can't pop above the cube and say, hey, Betty, can you help me with this?
Exactly.
So do you help someone through the questions that they need to ask themselves?
Yes, and a lot of times what I will help them is to figure out how to create something like a mastermind group or a support group where other self-employed people who work from home can get together, so that you feel that you have that connection to other people, and if there is a problem or a question, you have a group of people to go to. But it is true, working from home can be a very lonely sort of experience, and a lot of times I recommend to people, it's like, get your laptop, go over to the cafe, do your work while you're sitting having coffee, maybe you'll see some people and get out and do things.
Well, I work out of my home, as I've shared with you, and in the beginning it was a very difficult adjustment. I was very lonely. But then I started to discover the places where the lonely home-based business people were. And during the day, they are occasionally at the Office Depot type stores, wandering aimlessly, buying paper clips, looking for other sort of human interaction. They're at the local coffee shop, perhaps, looking for that kind of substitution for the coworkers. And of course, the internet has made it such a small world where it has opened those windows. Let's talk about the physical environment. We have heard stories of huge successes, like the beginning of eBay with the sale of Pez dispensers. I mean, it's legendary. Since I've learned that some of it's folklore, but the physical plant, we've heard of people starting with just the laptop on a kitchen table and doing beautifully. What are the minimum requirements for a home-based business?
Well, I guess it depends on what business you're going to be involved in. Obviously, if you are serving clients that come into your home, then having a separate place for that is absolutely necessary. As an example, say you're a psychologist, you have to have a private room or
at least a couch. Can't tell your husband, get off the couch, 805's here.
But like when I'm working with my clients, I work with clients all over the United States and Canada, and I work with them on the phone. So I need a computer, high-speed internet connection because of the research that I would do online, a telephone with 2 lines, one for personal, one for business. You don't want to mix them because that becomes very complicated. And really adequate space to be able to grow. Too often they start too small and then they realize they don't have any place to grow to.
They've grown out of their home office. And then back into
the filing cabinets in the hallway. And
So if possible, make sure that you will have adequate space to grow, and that is a neat, organized space. Because that reflects on your business.
Sure. I have a client who says basically she wants to be able to get to anything in 60 seconds or less. When you're self-employed, you don't have a lot of free time to be looking through your files to find what you need or looking through supplies and so forth. You need to be able to get what you need.
I'm going to go home now and try to see if I can find everything in 60 seconds or less. Now, so what kinds of things, what kinds of businesses have you coached that have worked well at home? And are there any that don't work well out of the home?
Well, businesses where you might go to the client's office or the client's home is a great home-based business for you. So as an example, a professional organizer goes out to other people's homes. A consultant, a salesperson, those kind of businesses work great from home because they tend to be more clerical work at home and then going out to meet the client. Certainly businesses where you do most of your work either on the phone or the internet or both work great from home. Businesses where you're going to be manufacturing something like gift baskets or knitting sweaters or I don't know, whatever.
Jewelry making.
Yes, exactly.
Those types of things.
That requires requires a little bit more space. So that there's a plus and a minus to that. The other thing you need to be very careful of is zoning laws. Some zoning laws are quite old-fashioned, and they don't allow people to either have a home business, they may be able to have a home office, but they can't manufacture, or they can't have employees come in without safety equipment put in the building, and it becomes financially burdensome to be able to do that.
And the last thing you want to do is become a bad neighbor.
Yes.
I have seen this happen with small contracting companies where vans with ladders on the top and all sorts of equipment starts to get dropped off.
Right.
And it could get really pretty ugly on in the neighborhood.
Yes, exactly. If you're having clients come in, you may find that your town says that you have to have X number of parking spaces. Well, most homes don't have 3 or 4 parking spaces, and that does not include street parking. You must have it on your property, so that becomes prohibitive.
There's another dirty little secret with the home-based businesses, and that's insurance.
Yes.
What kind of insurance might you need?
Well, as an example, there are lots of insurances you would need regardless of where you are, such as business insurances and things like that, disability insurance. For the home-based business, part of it depends on whether you're going to have employees or not. Because if you have people or clients coming into your house, you may need more liability insurance or insurances to cover damages like that. You also may need higher homeowner insurance because you may have more computer equipment. So you really need to talk to your insurance professional and say, this is what I'm planning to do. What insurance do you recommend?
Now, certainly companies like yours, a home-based business, passion for success, can help you through these sorts of things. But what are some of the steps before someone takes the plunge? I would imagine first is in-depth research on your product.
Right. Whether you're going to offer a product or service, you might be in love with it, but you need to make sure that the people out there in the world are also going to be in love with it.
And willing to pay for it.
And willing to pay for it.
A lot of people have great consulting talents, but does anybody really want to buy it?
Right, exactly. So you need to do your research.
And don't ask your friends.
Yeah, no,
because they'll tell you, great idea. Jump right in. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why it's good to get involved with a professional group or a think tank. And when I say think tank, I'm talking about a bunch of people who are in similar businesses who get together over a cup of coffee and just talk about what they want to do. So it's important to find out if there's a market for what you want to do. The other thing, of course, is to do planning about, well, what's this going to cost to start a business, and how long can I work at my business, maybe based on my savings or using a credit card or a loan or something like that, because you don't get income the first week you start. So planning all the finances and stuff is also really important.
So how long can you go without a regular paycheck?
Sure, absolutely. And even when you're self-employed, there's rarely such a thing as a regular paycheck.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the tolerance issues, personality-wise.
Yes.
If you like things nice and neat and safe, and you're not a financial risk taker, then this may not be the step for you.
Exactly.
If you're just joining us, Karyn Greenstreet is with me, and we're talking about starting a home-based business. And if it intrigues you, you stay with us. We're going to tell you how to go about it. Now, we've talked about the personality type. We've talked about researching the product. Now, here's something I think that a lot of people may go wrong. Pricing the product.
Right.
If that product is you as a speaker, if that product is you as a jewelry designer, how do you learn how to price? Research?
Research. Again, research. One of the best things you can do is, if you can, find out from your competitors what they're charging for a similar thing. You want to set your prices really based on your experience and your skill level. As an example, if you're new, when I was a new coach, I started off at a lower rate, and then as I gained experience and knowledge and so forth, and I increased my rates. The other thing you can do is there's actually websites and books and things where you can research what is the general price. So say that you're a website designer. You can go online, and there are places where it says in New Jersey, website designers typically charge between this amount and this amount. So you can do research that way as well. The worst thing you can do actually is to underprice yourself, and a lot of people do that.
Yeah. Oh, and I would imagine in the zeal of getting that first client, you'll make any kind of deal.
Exactly. And it may be okay in the beginning to offer discounts. You might say, well, I'm designing gift baskets, and maybe for the first 3 months I'm willing to offer a lower price to entice people to try them. And that's a common pricing strategy, and that's fine. The problem is if you continue to do that. And there's lots of reasons why people are sort of embarrassed to increase their price or embarrassed to even talk about their fees. But very commonly people will underprice and discount in the beginning and then just never stop.
Now, are there resources for all these brave warriors out there in their homes for things like medical insurance? That seems to be the main issue for stopping people today from following their dreams. I can't tell you the number of people have said, if only I didn't have to worry about medical insurance, I would try this. And I feel so badly for people who don't pursue dreams because of something like that.
Well, a lot of professional organizations do offer medical insurance or disability insurance. So say that you're a professional financial planner, you might go to the National Professional Financial Planning Group and see if they offer anything as part of their package. If they don't, sometimes local chamber of commerces will. So that's another option. And then of course the other thing is go to your insurance professional and say, this is what I'm looking for. Can you do that? I'm in a fortunate situation where I can get my medical insurance through my husband. So I didn't have to worry about that.
That's a good reason for having a husband.
Yes, exactly.
Now, home-based businesses are growing annually. How many people are out there?
Oh, the latest survey, which was probably 10 years ago, said between 8 and 10 million small businesses are home-based. There's a new survey coming out this year, so it'll be interesting to see those numbers because it grows at about 11% annually.
So now I see a whole industry, including something like your passion for business company, sort of growing, trainers, coaches. I see, which I cannot still figure out how the world needs this many paper clips and office chairs. But, if you go down any highway, there are dozens of office this and office that, and they're always filled with people buying things. I don't know if they ever use them, but they're buying things. So I start to see this whole industry evolving. So in your estimation, is it only going to keep getting bigger?
Well, it will, and here's one of the demographic pieces of information that actually support this, is that people who are retiring are not necessarily retiring completely. Many of them are starting their own businesses as a part-time thing because they want to keep their mind active, or they just really enjoy something, or they've always been passionate about something, and finally now that they're retired, they can do the thing they love. So this whole generation of people are beginning to think about starting their home-based business as well.
Well, where else it's obvious to me is in the real estate market, because there was a day that you would have never monopolized a bedroom in a home as an office. And so now, if you go look at a 4-bedroom house in the burbs somewhere, 3 of those rooms will be bedrooms, and 1 will be the home office, whether or not people are operating a business.
Absolutely.
But it almost seems like a staple. Now, what I see in new housing developments, if you ever go out on a Sunday afternoon and dream and look at these model homes of the McMansions, when you enter in, quite often to the right or to the left is a study/office so that people can welcome people in their house as clients.
My husband and I are looking to buy a home, and one of the requirements that we have is that there is a larger space, almost the size of what would be considered a master bedroom, for my home office. And if we could find something with sort of an outbuilding that a client could actually walk to, so they don't have to walk through the house. These things are really important, and more people are looking for that. Even if they're downsizing homes, their children are gone and they're downsizing, they're still looking for that extra space.
Oh, sure. And so I'm seeing this build and build and build. And also, let's talk about corporations. Now, in this area, I have heard of many people in Central Jersey here, Johnson & Johnson being outsourced at least 1 day a week to be there in their home.
Absolutely.
AT&T, when they recently had some downsizing, many of their people went off to work at home and only report into the office once a week. That's happening a lot as well.
Oh, that's huge. There's a huge number of people, probably the same number of people who work from home with their own businesses. Again, that same amount working from home at least 1 day a week, doing what I would consider employee work, but from home. Sometimes it's required by their company, and sometimes it's their choice. They ask, can I do this?
Well, I find it very interesting. I believe I get more work done in an 8-hour period in my home because I'm not involved with the chit-chat, or everybody's got that one guy that when he goes down the hall for a donut, you can't get rid of him. You try and you can't get him out of your cube, and people hide from certain people that come around. So I find myself to be very efficient. Do you find that to be one of the biggest obstacles for your clients that you're coaching, is stick-to-itness, or is it working too much? Which of those two ends of the
I'd
spectrum
say it's
do you
probably
find?
more stick-to-itness in the beginning when they're first getting started, because there's for the first time,
hallelujah,
for the first time
I'm
in their life, they
free.
have this incredible freedom, and they're at home. I wouldn't say like the laundry entices them or anything like that, but they can go over to the bookstore and wander and things like that. Then what I see is as they get more and more into the business, then become more and more successful, then it starts to switch the other way, where they almost have too many hours that they could put in, and they need to ratchet themselves back. But in the beginning, it's just so enticing to say, well, I'm going to I'm going to go this way, or I'm going to go this way. For me personally, in an efficiency mode, I know that around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I always get very sleepy. So from 3 to 4 is my time to stop work, go for a walk, and then I work from 4 to 6.
You know, I'm so glad you said that, because I had my 11 a.m. walk today. But one of the things that I found extremely difficult to adjust to was the guilt. You know, I was raised by a Sicilian mother, very much like a Jewish mother, that there's huge guilt. Everything's guilt, and I'm very guilt-driven. And the fact that because you're in a home-based business, and because I travel a great deal with that work that I do in speaking and training, I put in a huge amount of hours. So I have the luxury of being able to take an 11 a.m. walk, or on another day it's a 9:30 walk. But the guilt kills you, because you're not at that desk. Now, everyone's entitled to a lunch. Everyone's entitled to a coffee break. Do you find a lot of your clients are guilty?
They do. And what I tell them is, it's not a break, it's an investment. This is what we call extreme self-care, that you cannot be there for your clients and your customers. You cannot be there working at your peak performance unless you take care of yourself. So if you start getting a little tired around 11 o'clock, or you want to take that full hour for lunch, or you want to take a walk from 3 to 4 because that's when everybody else is sleeping anyway, but they're just in their office, that you need to go ahead and do that, because then when you come back, you can be a better whatever it is that you do for your clients and your customers.
A friend of mine is an accountant, but I really believe he's a vampire, because he works best all night long.
Yeah.
And then he needs to sleep like around 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then he goes back and does some more. But the guy is up all night, but he's productive at that time.
Yes.
So this is another advantage of working.
Yes. Whenever you're feeling energized, whenever you're feeling like your mind is really working, you can when you're self-employed. Last night I was sending out my monthly email newsletter at midnight, because I was awake and I was alert, and I just did it.
Yeah, and you're an insomniac.
Exactly.
Admit it.
No.
Okay.
No,
now,
then I went to bed.
There's a new term in this home-based business world of the virtual company.
Right.
What's that mean?
Well, a lot of people actually do have to meet with clients, but they still want to work from home, because maybe only 10% of the time they need to meet with clients. So what they do is, there's actually companies. Now think of this like a big office building, but every single office space in that building is rentable, almost like a hotel room.
Oh, I've heard ads for this on the radio.
So you can rent by the hour, by the day, by the week, by the month.
They even have receptionists.
They have receptionists who will take your phone calls for you when you're away. They'll do your copying. So it's almost like a real office, except you only rent the time you need. So if I'm working a full day with a client, say we're writing a business plan together and we want to get together, we'll go ahead and rent an office space for one day. I'll travel there and meet them for the day, and then I don't have the expense anymore. It's just that one day.
Wow, so clever. Why didn't I think of that?
And I think we're going to see more and more of that.
Now, Karyn, tell us how our viewers can get to you if they would like some coaching through this dream of creating a home-based business.
Absolutely. The best place to start is, of course, if you have internet access, is to go to www.passionforbusiness.com. There's lots of information out there, not only about my services, but just general information for people who either want to become self-employed or want to go to the next level. Say they've been self-employed for a few years and now want to go higher. Or they can call me, the area code 215-295-3132.
And besides coaching individuals, you would address groups, Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, I do lots of public speaking around self-employment topics and technology topics and websites and things like that.
Well, I find it very interesting, because I am one of those brave few at home, and occasionally you will see me with that, a cup of Java, wandering through the stationery store in hopes of finding someone else. But I think your suggestions of finding organizations that you could network with, because networking is still the way to do it, or you could become invisible. Now, I do have to ask you a little bit of advice. I'm trying to establish a company where all I have to do is test chocolate all day. Do you have anybody that's hiring? Because I could do that from home.
Well, I think you should start that business yourself, and then you can. I know lots of people who would want to come work for you.
I want to do it in my pajamas.
Exactly.
All right, so you get to work on that. It's Karyn Greenstreet. The company is Passion for Business. If you think that this is for you, you want to get in touch with Karyn. And as always, there's nothing like a great conversation. Thanks.
Thank you.